American Jewish Committee declared Jews cannot ensure equality for themselves until and unless it is assured for all.
The European Union is set to classify Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terror group.
One of the most violent years against American Jews in recent history.
AJC is the global advocacy organization for the Jewish people. This is what puts Jewish lives at risk. This is what we need the world to stand up and confront.
Who will never, ever give up hope.
Please welcome AJC Executive Council member Sharon Bergman.
Good evening and welcome to AJC Global Forum 2026. It is so meaningful to be here together. We are 2,000 Jews and allies from across the United States and more than 70 countries. In a time of surging global anti-Semitism, this right here is the most powerful act: to come together proud, united, and with a shared sense of urgency. And also to celebrate who we are and where we came from. Just over 120 years ago, a group of Jews gathered with similar intentions. On February 3rd, 1906, 34 Jewish men met in New York to consider forming a national Jewish defense organization in response to escalating persecution, including the Kishinev pogrom, which threatened the future of Jewish life in Tsarist Russia, then home to the world's largest Jewish community. 9 months later, 81 men met at the Hotel Savoy and founded the American Jewish Committee. They were a small group, quite literally a committee. Among them were Louis Marshall, a corporate, constitutional, and civil rights lawyer, Jacob Schiff, a banker and financier, and Cyrus Adler, a professor of Semitic languages. Influential American Jewish leaders with vision and conviction. They established AJC in the hope that their influence with the State Department would inspire American pressure to ameliorate the Russian government's treatment of its Jews. Their founding document stated, "An organization whose purpose shall be to promote the cause of Judaism and to aid in securing the civil and religious rights of the Jews in all countries where such rights are denied or endangered." Those words feel as urgent today as they did then. Although their initial efforts failed to secure improved treatment of Russian Jews, a goal that in retrospect was simply unattainable, they established something enduring. A model of deeply effective advocacy rooted in partnership, trust, and influence at the highest levels. From the beginning, they employed diplomacy, an approach that has defined AJC ever since and has helped shape pivotal moments in Jewish, American, and world history. We know that AJC's work of building trusted partnerships with leaders across the United States and around the world has never been more essential to ensuring the Jewish people and Israel are safe and thriving. During this global forum, we recommit to carrying this work forward, meeting today's challenges with the same resolve that has sustained AJC and the Jewish people for generations. We do so knowing that we stand on the shoulders of the AJC professionals, lay leaders, donors, and partners who have advanced this mission for generations. As of this year, I have had the privilege of engaging with AJC for half of my life, from campus through access, and now as a humbled member of the Executive Council. It's an honor to represent the younger generation, to carry with me our family's Iranian roots that come from my parents, Sima and Javid, who emigrated at the start of the revolution in the late 70s, and to follow in the footsteps of my parents-in-law, Marion and Stanley, who emigrated from apartheid South Africa and whose service to AJC knows no bounds. Like many of you, I'm here to make sure we leave this world better off than when we came into it. The future generation, my children, are my purpose. For a parent, there is no stronger motivation. And yet, admittedly, there are days when I still feel helpless and hopeless. In these trying moments, and there have been more than a few in the last 3 years especially, it is those who have come before me who give me hope, who give me strength. If they can continue to show up after decades of giving so much of themselves, then surely I can too. They are my inspiration. As we begin our program, we want to take a moment to pay tribute to leaders who have championed AJC over the past 120 years. We are honored to have with us today 8 past presidents or representatives of their families. Please join me in welcoming and applauding their collective leadership, which has been critical to this organization. Representing Maynard Wishner, Zichrono Livracha, who served as AJC president from 1980 to 1983, are his daughter Mimi, grandson Aaron, and granddaughter Lainey. Representing Howard Friedman, Zichrono Livracha, who served from 1983 to 1986, is his daughter Leslie. Representing Shalom Komeh, Zichrono Livracha, who served from 1989 to 1991, are his wife Estelle and daughter Laura. Representing Harold Tanner, Zichrono Livracha, who served from 2001 to 2004, are his daughter Karen and son-in-law Kent. Stanley Bergman, who served from 2013 to 2016. John Shapiro, who served from 2016 to 2019. Harriet Schleifer, who served from 2019 to 2022. Harriet was AJC's first female president. The first of many more, I'm sure. Michael Tickner, who served from 2022 to 2025. And current AJC President Bobby Lapin, who began his tenure 1 year ago. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge past presidents who could not be with us today, but are still very much part of the AJC community. Richard Seidman, Bob Goodkind, Bob Ellman, Al Moses, and Bruce Raymer. Let's give them all one more round of applause. All of these presidents said, "Hineni, here I am," and stepped forward to lead. They did so alongside the most dedicated, passionate professionals with whom I've also had the privilege of working, including at the organization's helm for more than 30 years, David Harris, and now Ted Deutch, who is further advancing our mission and deepening our impact. The AJC founders who convened in 1906 must be beaming with pride at the sight of us. Now thousands in number, including women and allies, and spanning generations. We are grateful to them for their vision, and to all of you on this stage, we thank you and we honor you. Now, as our tradition teaches us, le dor va dor, from generation to generation, all of us here together commit to carrying forward your legacy and the work of this incredible organization over the next 3 days, for the next 120 years and beyond. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to AJC Global Forum.
Sharon, thank you so much for that. What a special privilege and personal pleasure it is for me to have been able to share this stage with such a distinguished cohort of past AJC national presidents and their families' representatives, so that we can honor their leadership, for which so many of us here were and remain the beneficiaries of all of that work. What What a special treat. It is no less a privilege and a pleasure for me to welcome all of you to our 2026 AJC Global Forum. In this consequential moment for our people, for our country, and for our future, I am deeply, sincerely grateful to each of you for making the commitment to give of your time, your resources, and your hearts to come here to our nation's capital, to gather, to listen, to learn, to share, to advocate, to challenge, to laugh, to worry, to hug, and most importantly, to stand together, firmly resolved that in this 250th year of our nation and the 120th year of the American Jewish Committee, we will not cede our rightful place in our communities or in the American experiment to others who might seek to marginalize us or do us harm. Our destiny, together with all the obligations and the opportunities attendant to it, is in our hands. And I look very forward to joining with each of you over the course of the next 2 days to engage in a host of high-level presentations and discussions which will help inform and recharge us as effective advocates so that we can feel ever more confident and energized to help shape our destiny. For now, though, I have the distinct honor of helping to kick off our Global Forum by welcoming two genuine heroes to our stage. I know I don't have to remind anyone in this room that when we gathered for our AJC Global Forum 2025 just a year ago, we were emotionally consumed by the tragic fact that 59 hostages were still being held captive by Hamas and by the other terror groups in Gaza. We declared then, as we did every single day since Hamas's horrific attack on October 7th, that the Jewish people would not be whole until every last hostage was returned home. And we pledged that AJC would not rest until that result was achieved. In the months which followed our last Global Forum, more hostages were released, some returning alive to their grateful and joyful families, and others, of course, brought home for a dignified burial. And who among us will forget that moment on January 26th of this year when our prayers were answered when the remains of the final hostage were finally returned home to Israel. They were all finally home. That moment marked the closing of a chapter which I think for so many of us had consumed our emotions and had indelibly etched into our existence, an experience whose resonance likely will stay with us for the rest of our lives. The anguish, the pain, and the uncertainty of so many months, accompanied subsequently by the relief and by the tears of sadness and joy when all the hostages were finally freed. As I look back on this event, I am beyond proud of the way that AJC mobilized our global network, particularly our team in Washington, to elevate the voices of the hostage families and former hostages with elected officials in the halls of power in our communities, across our nation, and truly worldwide. And among these hostages were two whose names surely are familiar to most of us, Keith and Aviva Siegel, two captivity survivors who share a deeply personal connection with AJC by virtue of the fact that Keith and Aviva are the aunt and uncle of Emily Wesolowski, a former AJC colleague and a friend to so many of us on our staff. We remember well how following her release after 51 days of captivity herself, Aviva became the tireless and relentless advocate for Keith and for his freedom, an effort which AJC was just so proud to help support alongside Aviva by joining with Aviva, Emily, and their extended family to press for Keith's release. Those two were finally reunited when Keith was released after the unimaginable passage of 484 days, following which the two of them continued to fiercely advocate for the return of all the remaining hostages. So Aviva, Keith, Emily, and their family will always be a part of our AJC family. And I say with great sincerity that it brings us off-the-charts happiness to have them all here with us today. If you'll indulge me for just a moment to allow for a quick personal reflection, Along my own AJC journey, leadership journey, and owing to some of the positions that I've held over the years, like many of you in this room, I have been beyond privileged to have had the opportunity to interact with political, diplomatic, or thought leaders whose personal qualities I found to be quite impressive. But I must tell you that to me, when it comes to sheer courage, tenacity, and resilience, I know a few in whose company I will be prouder to stand than the two individuals who honor us with their presence here today. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Aviva and Keith Siegel.
Thank you, Bobby. Good evening. Shalom, AJC family. Tonight is a very special moment of closure for Aviva and myself. On October 7th, Aviva and I were kidnapped from our home in kibbutz Kfar Aza, our peaceful kibbutz, while 62 of our friends and neighbors were being kidnapped, injured, and murdered. Terrified, Aviva and I were taken into Gaza. When Aviva was released after 51 days in captivity, I was certain she would do anything possible to bring me back home. You saw Aviva everywhere. She is a force of nature, and she will do anything for her family. What I did not know is that so many kind and wonderful people we had never met before, would stand by her side like guardians from the United States and across the world, supporting her and our family during the darkest times when we needed it the most. For us, the AJC team and community are a huge part of that group of guardians. Without your dedication, your efforts, and your strong collaboration with the Hostage Families Forum, we might not be standing here tonight. You went to Capitol Hill, you said our names, you refused to let the world forget. We also want to express our deepest gratitude to our brave soldiers who fought to bring the hostages home. And to the families of the soldiers, Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be blessed, those who paid the ultimate price. And now, thanks to all of these efforts, there are no more hostages being held in Gaza. Aviva and I and the hostage families are so deeply, genuinely grateful. Now we can begin to rebuild. Now we can begin to heal. And after everything we went through, being kidnapped, losing our home and everything we knew, we found ourselves asking, what now? We felt that we had been given a different purpose, a new platform, one we never asked for, but one that we felt a responsibility to use. I've learned that healing doesn't come from standing still. It comes from moving toward something, toward others, toward purpose. This is why Aviva and I, we chose humanitarian action. We decided to join forces with IsraAid, Israel's largest humanitarian, non-governmental organization, because we believe this is Israel at its best. It was not at all surprising for us to learn that AJC and IsraAid have been long-time partners. Every time there has been a disaster somewhere in the world, including in Israel and the Middle East, IsraAid has been able to get there, to be first on the ground, thanks to AJC. It's because of AJC's support that IsraAid has been able to save lives and build bridges from Ukraine to Haiti to Puerto Rico and to Malawi. It's such an important part of my healing journey to be able to give something back, to give back to others who have also experienced extreme hardship. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's such an honor to be here and to say thank you to each of one and one of you. We've got family here that are sitting here with us, and we have you, and we have AJC. And I just want to say that so many days and so many meetings, we had to get up early in the morning and listen to who we're going to meet today. And while Jacob and all the people that were with us used to tell us who we're going to meet, I tried to remember the name. It was very difficult, but they knew everything about them, and it was just amazing. So thank you for focusing me and making me feel that I'm part of this whole thing of bringing them back home. And that's what we did. So I want to thank you. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. I'm standing here, and I'm alive. I'm standing here alive and still can't believe it. And even more than that, I'm standing next to Keith. So we're really the lucky ones, and I feel lucky. The kids and the grandchildren are doing everything they can for us to be happy, and we're doing everything for them to be happy after what we went through. But I do know that you all are family. We went through hell together. I know that Keith and I were hostages, but I know that you were with us every minute, because I felt it and I know it, and I want to thank you again. So the hostages, some can talk, some can't, and we're still all healing. It's going to take time. We still have to figure out what we should do to feel better and just to move forward. So Keith and I decided together that there's nothing more important than doing everything we can for this world to be a better world. After being in Kakuma, a refugee camp in Kenya, and seeing what's going there, I think that it's the right decision for us to help not only Israel, but to help the world, to be their words, because they are speechless. And it's been something that I never ever thought that I'll be able to do. And I'm just so proud of Keith and so proud that we're able to help, just like you, because we all want this world to be a better world. What helped me a lot, I wrote a book of everything that happened there in the darkest place in Gaza. I wrote it for my grandchildren until I understood that I wrote it for everybody that's in this room and for everybody to read it. It's a witness, and it's a way that I feel that I'm lucky that I survived to tell you. So we have to continue, and we're going to do that, but we're doing it with so much love with you and with all the people around us. We can feel it wherever we go, and we really feel so lucky to be with all the good people that want this world to be together. So together, we're going to make this world be a better world and do everything we can. And like my daughter said every time she spoke, each and one of us, when we wake up in the morning, need to say that we did everything we could to bring the hostages home, and now to make the next generations have a better world wherever they live. Jews have to feel free wherever they are and be happy and just enjoy life. So I want to invite Ted, please, to come here. As we're waiting for him, does everybody know how special he is? So not only me and not only Keith, but everybody here and the whole world wants to thank you for your biggest heart that you have and what you're doing for this world. And we really, really, from our bottom of our hearts, want to thank you. We've got a present for you.
Please welcome AJC Access Global Board Member, Sam Dreiman.
In 2024, AJC created the Ophir Lipstein Bridge Builder Award. Ophir and his son Nitzan were murdered by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. Ophir was the head of the Sha'ar HaNegev Regional Council and a beloved leader. He was dedicated to building bridges across communities for the Jewish people and for Israel. He was a staunch believer in people-to-people ties and an optimist who often said, "Light and goodness will ultimately triumph." Ophir's courage and dedication left an indelible mark on all who knew him. He was a close friend and partner to AJC. This award is a testament to his commitment to promoting peace and a reflection of his unwavering belief in bridging divides and fostering cooperation. Honoring Sarah and Yaron with this award could not be more fitting. Sarah and Yaron shared so many qualities with Ophir: commitment to the same mission, optimism for a brighter future. Three people who will not be remembered for the hatred that stole them from us, but for what they believed in and championed. For those who did not know them, the moving video we just saw gave a glimpse into who Sarah and Yaron were. I was fortunate enough, as others here today surely were as well, to call Sarah and Yaron my friends. I met Sarah through the AJC Sachs Fellowship. We traveled together in Morocco, and over bus rides, meals, and late-night conversations became fast friends. Her sense of mission and purpose, her courage, curiosity, optimism, and hope were clear and contagious. She was so funny, she loved her dog, and she loved Yaron, who, like Sarah, was deeply dedicated to his work. He was warm, shared Sarah's quiet confidence, and always had a smile on his face. They were both exhausted, like all of us, by the state of the world, but nevertheless, they were filled with joy and hope. To AJC, to our Access community, to our lay leaders and professionals in Washington, D.C., to our colleagues at the Israeli Embassy, and to me, who was there that tragic night at the Capitol Jewish Museum. The loss of Sarah and Yaron was and remains deeply personal. Just over 1 year later, it is a wound that has not healed. However, I am grateful for and comforted by the knowledge that their mission and memory lives on. And everyone gathering here today is a testament to that. Thank you to AJC and to every one of you for all being here, for coming to Global Forum, and for helping further their mission and carry on their optimism. We are honored today to be joined by Sarah and Yaron's parents, Bob and Nancy Milgrim, and Daniel and Ruth Lischinsky, who will accept these awards on their behalf. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
I stand before you as a very sad person. I am sad not only because of the tragic loss of our daughter, but I'm sad due to the state of affairs in which Jews live today. We now live in a world where every Jewish institution needs to be protected by armed security guards wearing bulletproof vests. We should intentionally remember what Sarah tried to accomplish in her short life. It is very easy to lose hope. When we see the protesters outside of our hotel accusing us of genocide, it is very easy to lose hope. And even when you have hope, you need to do more. We must plant seeds. I see Sarah's legacy as inspiring other people to continue her work. It is one thing just to remember what she did, but it is a whole different thing to start doing something, to continue the work, to continue the dialogue, to bring people together. If you are inspired, you should act. Sarah's legacy will imbue our work with meaning. We should not honor her by retreating from coexistence. We will honor her by doubling down on full, unapologetic bridge building. Nancy and I have learned many things since the death of Sarah and Yaron. Most importantly, we have learned the true meaning of what it is to be a Jew. And even though that we are scattered across many lands, we are all part of the same family. This family has provided us with the support that we need. And for that, I say thank you to everyone in this room.
Thank you to the AJC for honoring Sarah and Yaron this evening with the Ophir Lipstein Bridge Builders Award, and we thank you for bringing us here to accept this award. We appreciate the opportunity to share a few words about Sarah. I was considering what to say about her, thinking about what you may not already know. You may have known her personally or read about her in the newspaper, watched TV news stories, seen an interview with Bob, or Bob and me on TV. You may have heard us speak at the ADL conference. So much has been shared. I don't want to repeat what has already been stated. I want to share something you don't already know, and yet I want to keep some things, some memories just for myself. Some memories are sacred. The past year still seems surreal. I can't believe Sarah has been gone for 12 months. My twisted brain will often envision driving to the airport to pick her up. And yet, we are grateful for the Jewish traditions of mourning, which we have followed. They have given us structure and purpose and kept us going day by day, sometimes hour by hour. And now that her yahrzeit has passed, the Jewish tradition states we are supposed to return to the land of the living. I don't feel ready to stop saying Kaddish every day or to not attend Shabbat service every Friday. The loss of Sarah is too great to ever be out of my heart and mind. I will never return to the life I had, nor be the person I was a year ago. And yet, out of this tragic loss, we have learned so much about Sarah, things we may never have known because we would not have been in communication with the many people who knew her and were able to share with us. Out of this tragic loss, old friendships were renewed and new friendships have been forged. Seeds have been planted for many ways to honor Sarah's memory and continue the work she was doing. Hundreds of trees have been planted in her memory in Israel and all over the US. There are 3 scholarships which will allow students to continue in Sarah's footsteps to promote peace building and environmental initiatives. We have lost so much. We have lost that which is irreplaceable. And yet, we have community, and through community comes healing. I have heard our rabbi say many times, the only way through the wilderness is to hold hands and march together. So I thank you for being our community.
Dear friends, honorable guests, Shalom, Shalom from Jerusalem. We together, we are part of something ancient. We are part of the plan of God to be good with His creation, to be one with Him. We are part in the plan of God, all of us together, to be messengers and teachers for the nations. Ki mitzion titzeh Torah, udvar Adonai miYerushalayim, said the prophet Yeshayahu Hanavi, Isaiah the prophet. We're supposed to be light for the nations. We're supposed to congregate and to gather back the nations around Him. And this plan of God through the Jewish people is for good, is for blessings, is not for bad, like some people lie about us, to be a blessing and light for the nations. And this plan is a proof of God, His faithfulness and His goodness. And these people, the people of the promise, we are His guarantee, we are His seal. If these people stop to exist, then God is a liar. That's why our people, the Jewish people, will never stop to exist. And the AJC is part of these people, is part of this plan. The dean of the American Jewish groups, like we heard from his foundation in 1906 at the Savoy Hotel in New York. The organization, like we heard, was formed in direct response to the pogroms in Russia, in the Tsarist Russia, especially in Kishinev. Key figures like Jacob Schiff, Louis Marshall, Cyrus Adler, and Oscar Strauss understood the urgency of the Jewish brothers. Through personal connection and quiet diplomacy, AJC touched peoples and governments, the same like Sarah and Yaron. In migration and civil rights for the early years, combating anti-Semitism, 1920 Dearborn Independent, exposing the Nazi sympathizers in the US and helping the displaced person in post-war Europe. Modern global advocacy, support for Israel, interfaith relations with 25 offices in the US and partnership and offices across the 6 continents. The AJC, like many other Jewish organizations, are essential and integral part of the Jewish people and his destiny. The same they were Sarah and Yaron. bringing people together, fighting anti-Semitism, interfaith, color, and interreligion relations. Those were Sarah and Yaron's. Understanding and loving the minorities and the people that they are different from us. Those were Sarah and Yaron. Quiet diplomacy, Abraham Accords, looking for peace with our neighbors in the Middle East. Those were Sarah and Yaron. Connecting to people one-to-one, reaching the human being in their partners and not the position or the title, loving God's creation, animals and plants. Those were Sarah and Yaron. And we, their parents, we learn from them. We have another 4 children, Hanan, Gabriel, Judith, and Benami, and we are proud of all of them. We are very proud of them. And from the 4 of them, we learn daily. But we miss Sarah and Yaron. We would have liked to see them getting married. We would have liked to play with their children. But what was their crime? Being Jewish and being Israeli, trying to find a better way to introduce humanitarian help to Gaza. That was the subject of that night AJC meeting at the Capital Jewish Museum here in Washington, D.C. They were really bridge builders, peacemakers, like Ophir Lipstein and the AJC. So we are very touched that the AJC honors Sarah and Yaron with the Ophir Lipstein Prize. We are very thankful for the opportunity, together with the Israeli Embassy, that you and the Israeli Embassy gave to Sarah and Yaron to develop their abilities and potential. So thank you for keeping Sarah and Yaron memories and legacies alive. Thank you, Bob and Nancy Milgrim. Thank you for sharing Sarah with us, for sharing Sarah with Yaron. Our thanks to the people that make AJC possible. His CEO, Ted Deutch. Thank you, Ted. His president, Bobby Lipkin. My friend, Bobby. My friend, Curtis Lane. Thank you, friends. Thank you to all the people that work in AJC and the volunteers. Thank you to the people that invest money and time to support Israel and the Jewish people. Thank you to all the donors and partners of AJC. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We thank you. Am Israel Chai.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to AJC Global Forum 2026. Just look at this room. More than 2,000 people gathered together from across the United States, Israel, and more than 70 Jewish communities around the world. Students, diplomats, community leaders, allies, rabbis, elected officials, business leaders, activists, and hundreds of Jewish leaders from Access, Campus Global Fellows, and Leaders for Tomorrow. You are not waiting for someone else to shape the Jewish future. Our young leaders here, you are already shaping it yourselves. You're on the front lines, on campus, online, and in your communities. And at a moment when it would be far easier to stay silent, you chose courage. Everyone in this room should leave inspired by all of you. To all of our young people here, thank you for being with us. To everyone here today, welcome home. By the time these 2 days are over, I believe every person in this room will feel even more deeply that you are not simply attending AJC Global Forum, you're helping to write AJC's next 120 years and the next chapter of the Jewish story itself. I want to begin by thanking Keith and Aviva Siegel for being here with us tonight. Keith and Aviva, your courage, your humanity, and your resilience have touched Jews and non-Jews all around the world. Through unimaginable pain, your family reminded the world that the hostages were never headlines or numbers. They were beloved sons and daughters, parents and grandparents, friends and family members. We carry them with us tonight and always. Working with you and on behalf of the hostages was, for us at AJC, the honor of our lifetimes. I also want to thank Bob and Nancy Milgrim, Daniel and Ruth Lischinsky. Last week marked 1 year since Sarah and Yaron, Zichronam Livracha, were murdered here in Washington. As we know and as we were reminded again, they represented so much of what this community stands for: love of the Jewish people, belief in shared dialogue, belief in a better future. Thank you for allowing us, all of us, to honor their memory together. We will continue to carry Sarah and Yaron with us in grief and very much in purpose. And I want to recognize the past AJC presidents and family representatives who joined us on stage tonight. These leaders helped build AJC into the global advocacy organization for the Jewish people that it is today. You strengthened Jewish communities, you stood up for Israel, built relationships around the world, and helped ensure that the Jewish people never stand alone. I'm continually grateful for your leadership, for your mentorship, and for your belief in this organization and its mission. And to those who are no longer with us, your legacy of service and commitment to the Jewish community absolutely lives on. There's something profoundly moving about being together like this at this moment in Jewish history, because the world keeps telling Jews to be afraid, and yet here we are, still standing, still leading, still writing our own story, proudly Jewish, proudly Zionist, refusing to be intimidated, refusing to hand our future to the loudest voices of hate. That spirit, that determination is the story of the Jewish people. And it's the story of AJC. For 120 years, AJC has helped shape Jewish history. Generation after generation refused to accept that the Jewish future would be decided for us. They organized, they advocated, They built global relationships across governments, faiths, and societies. They defended our people, they strengthened Israel, and now it is our turn. Every person in this room is now a part of that story. Every conversation you have here, every idea you bring home to your community, every act of advocacy you take to embassies, to Capitol Hill and beyond, this is how the next 120 years of AJC will be written. Today, that mission is every bit as urgent as it was when AJC was founded more than a century ago. Violent anti-Semitism is resurging from Washington to Melbourne, from college campuses to city streets. Public figures are legitimizing hatred and conspiracy theories that once lived only on the fringes. And too many Jews are asking themselves a question previous generations hoped their children would never have to ask again. Is it safe to live openly as a Jew? But here's what history teaches us. The Jewish story has never been written by those who hated us. It has been written by Jews who refused to surrender to fear, by Jews who rebuilt, who led, who dreamed, who carried our people forward even in the hardest moments imaginable. And as I stand with all of you tonight, I see an entire community writing the next chapter of our story by choosing action over apathy, by choosing hope over fear, and by choosing leadership over resignation. That's what AJC has always done. And that's what we're here to do now. Over the next few days, our Global Forum experience and advocacy will be grounded in 3 themes that align with AJC's priorities: ensuring Jewish communities are safe and thriving, securing Israel's place in the world, and shaping a new future. We'll begin with an unflinching look at the state of global anti-Semitism and what it will take to ensure Jewish communities are not only safe, but are able to thrive. We'll engage leaders across society on how we confront anti-Semitism online, on campus, in government, in media, and beyond. We'll tackle some of the top challenges facing Israel today while also exploring the extraordinary opportunities emerging across the Middle East and how partnership across business and diplomacy and civil society can help move us closer to lasting peace. We'll examine the past. We'll look at the future. We'll look at the present, and we'll consider the future of the American Jewish experience. All that as America approaches its 250th anniversary, situating today's challenges within the larger arc of Jewish history and the American story itself. And we will discuss how AJC is shaping a new future through global engagement, advocacy, and tech, a commitment to principled bipartisanship in an increasingly divided environment, and yes, investing in young Jewish leaders. We will spotlight students who are stepping up for Jewish communities on campus at a time when the stakes have never been higher, along with our vital partnerships with Jewish communities all around the world. And finally, we will take our work out of this room and onto Capitol Hill. We'll turn ideas into action and our advocacy into impact. Over the next 2 days, you'll not only hear about AJC's mission and priorities, you will help shape them. And as we begin our formal program and jump into our first theme, I want to start by telling you about AJC's next major step in directly responding to surging anti-Semitism worldwide. First, we have to acknowledge something fundamental. Anti-Semitism has changed. It spreads faster. It hides behind new language. It moves from the internet into classrooms, workplaces, politics, everyday life. And if anti-Semitism has evolved, then our fight against it must evolve with it. So we built something new, something ready for this moment. It's AJC's Combating Anti-Semitism Playbook. This is the most comprehensive strategy ever assembled to confront anti-Jewish hate. We came together with partners in government and technology, education, law enforcement, civil society, and the Jewish community to create this critical tool. It will help leaders across society better understand, better respond to, and prevent anti-Semitism in all of its modern forms. And through it, we will equip leaders in the United States and around the world to confront anti-Jewish hatred with greater clarity, with greater confidence, and with effectiveness. But as I said before, AJC is doing more than fighting anti-Semitism. We're building stronger, flourishing Jewish communities that can endure. The challenges before us are significant, but so is our strength. Just look around this room. Really, take a moment. Look around this room. Leaders from more than 70 Jewish communities around the world, united not by geography or politics, but by a shared commitment to ensuring that Jewish life continues to thrive for generations to come. Partners and allies, generations standing side by side, young Jews choosing courage over silence, a global Jewish community refusing to shrink from this moment. This is what Jewish resilience looks like. This is what hope looks like. And this is what the next chapter of the Jewish story looks like. So over these next 2 days, let's think boldly. Let's lead confidently. Let's strengthen our communities, deepen our partnerships, defend our values, and shape our future together. Because the next chapter of AJC's story and the next chapter of the Jewish story is ours to write. And my friends, we are going to write it together. Thank you for joining us at Global Forum. Now it is my honor to welcome a leader who's been a true partner in helping to ensure that Jewish students can learn and lead and thrive on campus. Vanderbilt University Chancellor Daniel Diermeier. Chancellor Diermeier, please join us on stage. Welcome, Chancellor Diermeier. Chancellor Diermeier, this Global Forum marks 2 years since we launched AJC Center for Education Advocacy. Founded in the wake of the surge of anti-Semitism after October 7th, we've worked hand in hand with trusted partners in universities, K-12 schools, education organizations, to build schools and campuses that are resilient in the face of anti-Semitism, and to foster environments devoted to productive civic engagement. This work is not quick or easy. It relies on visionary leaders, leaders who see the need for deep and lasting change in our education sector, change that will create better learning environments for Jewish students, yes, but ultimately for everyone. Chancellor Diermeier, you are one of those leaders. You are a trusted thought partner to AJC. Your voice is a vital example of moral leadership, and we are so thrilled to have you here on our Global Forum stage. Thank you for leading at this moment. So let's jump in.
Yes.
Great. Chancellor Diermeier, the problems that led to the surge of anti-Semitism after October 7th, they didn't start on October 7th. From your vantage point, what actually went wrong on campus? What was going wrong in colleges and universities even before October 7th that we have to address right now?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a great honor to be with you together on this evening. I think what happened really goes back a few years. It's not just anything that happened 2 to 3 years ago, it goes back longer. And what has happened really is that the American university campuses have become politicized. And that means specifically we've seen the emergence of illiberal thought on American campuses. And whenever we have illiberal thought, there's a version on the right, there's a version on the left. On campus, it was largely from the left, almost exclusively. And what that's meant is that there was a small group of members of the community, faculty, students, and so forth, and not a large group, at Vanderbilt no more than 4 or 5%, at other universities more, that basically view the world as through the lens of oppressors and oppressed, and see their mission in life to dismantle these structures of oppression. And then faculty will put, and that's the way they talk about it, some of them will put their scholarship basically in service of this particular agenda. So just to give you one example, the American Anthropological Association has one of its statements where they say it is the professional standard for anthropologists to put their teaching and research in service of dismantling structures of colonialization. So that has been happening for a while. And the problem is that there's a large group of people in the middle that do not want to get engaged. Your typical faculty member, let's say your biochemist, wants to be in the lab 14 hours a day and be left alone. That's a large group, 80–85%. And then the people that were committed, either through more conservative thought or kind of liberalism in the sense of John Stuart Mill, were isolated and were not organized. Because it's very important to understand that people on the radical left, they're concentrated in certain areas, they're organized, they're motivated. And so the university, the ship, if you want to use that metaphor, at Vanderbilt we talk about the Commodores, we have to have a maritime metaphor. The ships have been drifting without a keel for the last 10, 20 years, and that's where we are.
So you've called for a return in response to this. You've called for a return to liberal arts education that focuses on critical thinking and constructive dialogue across difference. Our Combating Anti-Semitism playbook makes similar recommendations. When students feel a strong sense of moral urgency about some topic, what do they need to learn about how to disagree and be constructive citizens? How has that been missing, and how do we bring that back?
Whenever you have kind of emergence of liberal thoughts, the first attack goes against the Jewish community. I mean, we've seen this through history again and again. So it's very, very important that we committed to a liberal education in university, and that really means an education that is suitable for citizens in a free society. That's what this is all about. So when we talk about the purpose of university, it's about path-breaking research and a transformative education, and that means they have to learn how to think for themselves, they have to be able to have meaningful careers, but most importantly, that they become suitable and ready to take on the responsibility of citizens in a free society. To do that, you have to have principles, you have the commitment of free speech, to what we call institutional neutrality, which means that we will not take positions on contested political or policy issues unless they directly affect the university, and then crucially, a commitment to civil discourse. That means that students, when they come together to Vanderbilt, they're there because they have joined a community that is dedicated to exploring ideas respectfully through arguments, to listening to each other, not demonizing each other, and not ostracizing each other just because we disagree. That's crucial for us, and we work very hard to make sure that that culture is a reality for our students.
So, as you just referenced, Vanderbilt adheres to this principle of institutional neutrality. And it prompts a couple of questions. First, how do you define that? And secondly, I think that probably a number of us here are wondering how a university can be neutral when it comes to anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism that threatens Jewish students.
Yeah. So institutional neutrality is a technical term. It goes back really many decades. University of Chicago and Vanderbilt have really been leaders on that. What it means is that the purpose of a university is to create an environment where debate can thrive. The job for universities is not to settle debates, but to encourage them. We're not a political party, we're not joining a political movement. And that means in practice that the leaders of the university, myself, my deans, the board, will not take positions on contested political issues unless they directly affect the core function of the university. Why? Because we want to create a forum for faculty and students to discuss things amongst themselves. That's the key. Now, this is not the only pillar. I mentioned previously, the importance of civil discourse. And when we think about what happened really after October 7th, there was, number one, a desire by radical student groups, sometimes supported by faculty, to force universities or to pressure universities to take positions on contested political issues, of course, to denounce Israel's genocide, to make sure that the university endowments would divest from companies that any ties to Israel or boycott Israeli companies. That is inconsistent with the principle of institutional neutrality. We were utterly clear about that, so it was in my message to the community right after October 7, I made it utterly clear that the BDS movement has no place on Vanderbilt University.
And how does that, just continue the thought of institutional neutrality. So in that, help us understand where institutional neutrality and moral clarity intersect.
Yeah, so you always have to, everything you have to do has to come from your purpose, especially when you're a mission-driven university, a mission-driven institution like a university. Our job is to create an environment where our students can learn how to think for themselves and to become responsible citizens, and to create an environment for our faculty to do their great research. So everything has to be part of that. So the way we think about our social mission is not to take sides on this political issue or that political issue, but to create an environment where path-breaking research, transformative education can thrive, because that's a noble mission by itself. So what we need to make sure is that everything that we do, including the culture that we have on campus, creates an environment where students treat each other with respect, where they listen to each other, and where they don't ostracize each other just because they're different point of view. It starts when students arrive on campus. They sign a pledge, which we call the Community Creed, which has these values in there, enshrined, which they wrote themselves. Then we spend a lot of time together with me and with others to make sure that our students are ready for that, because, little footnote, they're not prepared from their high schools, okay? So we work very hard to select students that want this commitment, but I'm telling you, when they come back, it's almost like we have to have a whole program to get them ready for culture of civil discourse. That is an enormous amount of work. It's working very, very well at Vanderbilt, but it doesn't just happen by pronouncement. It's hard work.
And that's something that you look for as you're putting together a first-year class.
Oh, yes. I mean, we want students that embrace that. We have now we've had tremendous interest for students coming to Vanderbilt. Our application rates have been through the roof. We now, in what we call regular decision, took like 2.8% of the students, which is unprecedented in our history. And we have become a destination for families that are looking for that, including from the Jewish community. And that, to me, is testament that what we're doing on campus is working.
And some of the upsetting, the horrific anti-Semitic language that we've seen on campuses across the country slurs language that dehumanizes and intimidates, calls for the exclusion of Jewish students, of Zionists. Any of those approaches interfere with the mission of the university and the community that you're trying to create. We hear a lot. Obviously, we're committed to free speech, but help us understand, again, in terms of the values of the university, how those kinds of attacks are not just viewed as attacks against the Jewish community, but are ultimately attacks against the campus community and really limit free speech.
So I think we've obviously seen horrific incidents of harassments and exclusion of students, exclusionary behavior of students on campus communities. It's very, very important that the rules that we set ourselves, that we live by. So we had, in one case, we had a small group of radical pro-Palestinian students that tried to occupy my office and injured a security guard on the way. And we suspended all of them, all 30 of them, and then 3 were expelled. And a couple were suspended, and the rest were all on putting on long-term probation, because when you come, you sign on to a set of principles. Now, what we have often is, not often, but from time to time, we'll have student groups that say something, and then that doesn't have to be just on Israel, it can be on anything, where people say, well, that's terrible, and it's false, it's wrong, here's the data, and you as an education institution, why don't you interfere and set the record straight? Well, you have to remember what we're trying to do is to create an environment where our students will be leaders in a free and democratic society. We need to create a culture where the students can navigate this with each other. That's the critical point, and that's what we have been working on. And that is hard, difficult work. It requires that the students are owners of that culture, which they are. So we have a whole program which we call Dialogue Vanderbilt, where we have student leaders, we have programming, we make it a habit how we interact with each other so that we treat each other with respect. I think it's a mistake for universities to constantly intervene and kind of say, you're right, you're wrong, because it is antithetical to the fundamental purpose that we have. But it requires students that are mature, that understand the importance of having fact-based arguments and be able to interact with others in a culture of respect. The critical thing when things really go wrong is when we start demonizing each other and we forget that we all came together to live and learn together.
The culture on campus is established by leaders with you at the top. It's a culture that students participate in, but there's another important group on campus, and that's faculty. They play a role in contributing to this culture one way or the other as well, don't they?
Absolutely, and we want to make sure that this culture lives in the classroom as well. It can't just be something that is on paper or that is part of like a mission statement that we talk about at the beginning of the year. This is utterly critical. So that means, for example, we have workshops for faculty, we have a whole new kind of commitment to liberal arts education, classes that all the students take, College of Arts and Sciences. So I'm very pleased with how the faculty has responded. We had a lot of discussions on that. But for example, my faculty senate recently passed a resolution on academic freedom that I was really proud of. So I think what we have seen on campus is that there's a culture emerging that we can talk to each other across our differences. And just to give you one example, on the student side, after Charlie Kirk was shot, was another instance where kind of university campus were ripped apart. We have a strong chapter of college Democrats, a strong chapter of college Republicans. They issued a joint statement. We had nothing to do with it. They did it on their own, where they first condemned the killing and secondly reinforced their joint commitment to a culture of civil discourse. When we have that, we know it's working.
Is the culture, the structures that you put in place at Vanderbilt, are they so unique? Is there a reason that there are some universities that continue to be so challenged by these issues?
Well, we have been working on this for a while. I mean, it's not like we came up with this yesterday. When I arrived on campus, it was very clear to me that we were utterly clear and committed to our purpose and the values that support that. And then, very importantly, you have to make these things a reality. As I said in passing before, principles are great, but culture is king. So it has to be the way we do things around here, and that takes some time. It takes a real commitment. And it's important that we see this in the broader context, and then it's important that we create an environment where our students can thrive. Again, nothing that happens over time, nothing that can be mandated from the top, but you can create an environment for where this happens. And one of the things that really gave me great joy, we had the Passover Seder was celebrated this year in the football stadium. So we're now a football powerhouse for the first time in our history. And Rabbi Shlomo of Chabad had the great idea to celebrate this in the end zone of the football stadium. And so we had 600 plus students joyously celebrating Passover, bringing friends along, their non-Jewish friends was powerful.
Amazing. So we are, this audience, as you can tell, deeply appreciative of what's happening at Vanderbilt. And as I said earlier, we're proud to be your partner in so much of this work, understanding that this takes time, that it's not a quick fix. You've been at it for a long time. Other campuses, some have started, but the change requires an ongoing commitment, and it requires sustained efforts. Are you seeing signs that campuses around the country are moving in the right direction?
I'm actually quite optimistic. So I've been at this for a while. There were some dark moments on university campus that, of course, we're all aware of. I think there was also a period where various university leaders said, like, everything's just fine. And yeah, we had some problems here, but we're okay. And I think that's changing. We have been working very hard with university leaders from other universities to create an awareness of this and also to talk about what can we do about it. I think we're seeing some hopeful signs now. I think that Yale just published a report a couple of weeks ago. That's hopeful. We've seen similar things from Harvard. There was a nice statement, Radcliffe at Harvard. So I think we're seeing a movement. I think the critical piece was we were really kind of lonely voices for a time. And I think now many more university presidents see the need to take action, and they're ready to do so. But I gotta tell you, this is like, taking on a kind of radical faction is not for the faint of heart. You will be called names. I had my board members targeted individually and their kids, especially Jewish board members, identified by name. I've had, security protection, the usual thing. So you need to ground yourself in principles, and then you have to be able to act with the courage of your convictions. That's really critical.
And as we engage in this work with your team, you are confident the numbers of others who are willing to join is going to grow.
I am very optimistic. I'm very optimistic. I have a lot of private conversations, and I think what we need now is the beginning of a movement to say, this is the right thing to do. We can support each other. The universities are fantastic. They are great assets to America. They are still the crown jewel of higher education in the world, but there's things that need to be fixed. And the critical thing is for us to be utterly clear about what our purpose is, act accordingly, and then create an environment where all members of our community can thrive.
There is a movement to do this. We are proud to work with you to help drive this movement, and we're really incredibly grateful for your leadership at this time when it is so critical. Thank you, and anchor down.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
AJC's regional offices are key to advancing AJC's global advocacy work on the local level. Across the country, AJC's regional offices create trusted partnerships with leaders to drive impact on AJC's priorities.
We do have really terrific and impactful regional offices from coast to coast.
San Diego's City Council just recently adopted the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism after direct advocacy from our office.
In Palm Beach, the regional office is working with FBI and local sheriffs to expand anti-Semitism training programs.
In New York, our New York regional office, through advocacy, through coalition building, New York State now requires every college and university to appoint a dedicated Title VI coordinator to actively prevent and address discrimination and anti-Semitism. This will help students for years to come.
In Plano, Texas, outside of Dallas, the Independent School District created a comprehensive action plan to combat anti-Semitism. And that happened because of the close engagement with our Dallas team.
Each of these examples and the broader advocacy we do across the country show the power of a truly global network working locally.
The way AJC professionals and lay leaders work together is not just special, but it feels really magical.
Our regional lay leaders across 25 offices in the U.S. really understand the critical work of the regions. And they are there for AJC as champions, connectors, strategic advisors, and so much more.
Together, we accelerate change that neither could achieve alone. We have distinct roles, and we have guiding principles of respect, accountability, integrity, innovation, and collaboration. We are doing this work coast to coast, north to south, effecting change, and that's why we are one AJC.
When those local wins add up, from school districts to state governments, they create meaningful nationwide progress towards shaping a world in which Jews and Israel are thriving. This work lays the foundation for long-term impact, ensuring that communities across the country are better prepared, better educated, and more resilient for years to come.
Please welcome past AJC National President and Chair of Global Jewish Communities, John Shapiro.
Thank you. They were trying to remove the furniture, and I thought they were going to take me with it, but I outfoxed them. As a global advocacy organization for the Jewish people, AJC's impact spans the United States, as we just saw in that video, and also reaches Jewish communities around the world. If there's one thing we know about anti-Semitism, it is that it is a global challenge. And if there's one thing we know about the Jewish people, it's that we are deeply connected, bound by a shared sense of responsibility and careship and kinship with one another. As Israel and the Jewish diaspora face continued threats, our bond becomes even more tangible, enduring, and critical. That is why collaboration with Jewish organizations and communities worldwide is central to AJC's work, bringing together our global network with regional and local expertise to have real impact on the ground. We are proud to partner with more than 40 Jewish communities across the globe, many of whom are represented here today. Together, we advocate with governments, respond in moments of crisis, and work to strengthen and secure Jewish life. To our Jewish community representatives joining us in person and online, we are honored to work with you and to stand with you. Whenever you need us, we will be there. That is a commitment at the core of AJC, and we are proud to reaffirm it today. In this next segment, and in each plenary, we will feature leaders from Jewish communities around the world, alongside their AJC counterparts, whose partnership bring this work to life. Please join me in welcoming Joel Burney, Executive Manager of the Australia, Israel, and Jewish Affairs Council, and Shar Lowenberg, Director of AJC's Asia Pacific Institute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and hi, Joel.
G'day, Shira.
I am delighted to be standing on this stage with you. AJC and AJAC have been working together for almost 3 decades. In fact, AJC's first partnership agreement was with AJAC 30 years ago. And today, AJC has partnership agreements with over 40 communities across the globe. AJC and AJAC are united by identical goals of strengthening our Jewish communities, connecting with and advocating for the global Jewish community, and supporting Israel's place in the world.
Well, thank you, Shira, and it is so great to be with you all tonight. AJC and AJAC's partnership is one we've been enormously proud of over the years. It's a partnership that we have both benefited from,
as we have cooperated on outreach to Southeast Asia, on outreach to our fellow Jews in New Zealand, and on shared programs between Project Interchange and Ajax Rambam program that brought groups from Thailand, Vietnam, and most importantly, Indonesia to Israel. Next year will mark 30 years that AJC and Ajax have been working together.
And that good work continues. The good work continues today. But I have to say, Joel, that as much as I enjoy working with you, and as much as I enjoy our regular phone calls, where you're waking up at 6 in the morning to account for a 16-hour time difference, it pains me to see just how much we've needed to work together over the last 3 years. As anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism have skyrocketed all over the world, I think that no community has felt the change as sharply as the Australian Jewish community. Your community seems to have experienced a jolt that has transformed how the Jews of Australia see themselves and see their place in Australian society. Last year, you spoke on the Global Forum stage about the anguish of your community and the violence, both in rhetoric and in actions, and that you had all endured. And that was months before the lethal attack on Bondi Beach last December.
The Bondi attack was an escalation that we had foreseen and been warning Australian officials of, and that AJC, when you and my mate Ted visited Australia last August, supported and joined us in appealing to local and national government officials, emphasizing that incendiary rhetoric inevitably leads to violence and that it must be stopped. Tragically, it took the attack at Bondi to get any meaningful reaction.
We rely on you, Joel, and your colleagues as the experts in Australia, experiencing the challenges firsthand, to guide us and to advise us, and to tell us where, when, and how we can best be of help. We're proud to stand with you and to amplify your efforts, getting your government support to protect its Jewish citizens, including calling for the creation of the Royal Commission of Inquiry after the Bondi attack.
Well, Shira, I can definitely speak on behalf of AJAC and my community when I tell all of you here tonight that our work together with AJC gives us strength. We are grateful for this partnership that amplifies our voices, brings attention to the failures of those who represent us in Australia so that our concerns are seriously addressed, and that highlights our issues, which are global Jewish issues, to the American government. I've been attending Global Forum for a number of years, and AJAC's Executive Director, Dr. Colin Rubenstein, attended for decades preceding me. It is always meaningful to be here and to be strengthened by being together as one global Jewish community through AJC.
Well, on behalf of all of us at AJC and myself, I want to thank you, Joel, and thanks to Colin as well, and to all your colleagues, including the wonderful Jeremy Jones, who's no longer with us, and to others on your team with whom we continue to work. It's very good to know who our mishpacha is all over the world, and certainly thousands of miles away, to know upon whom we can rely. And I know that you know who you can rely on. Although we live thousands of miles apart, we're united in our efforts as one Jewish people to secure our safety, our well-being, and our pride in our community and our joy.
Absolutely, Shira. Our work together not only emphasizes the unity of purpose and the seriousness of our work confronting and combating these very real challenges, but also it is unified by our shared commitment to the continuity of Jewish life in Australia, here in America, in Asia Pacific, in Israel, and around the world. Wherever there is a Jewish presence, with joy, with optimism, and in celebration. Thank you, AJC.
Thank you. Thank you, AJAC.
Please welcome Chair of AJC's Board of Trustees, Curtis Lane.
Good evening. As Ted said earlier, a lot better than I can say it, as we are experiencing, we are living through an incredibly difficult time for our community. One that is not unlike the moment that brought AJC's founders together 120 years ago. AJC was founded in the wake of the Kishinev pogrom, a violent, horrifying reminder of Jewish powerlessness. The founders responded by building an institution designed not just for that crisis, but for the long term. And AJC has been exactly that, consistent and tenacious, with successes like the Abraham Accords and the historic normalization of relations between Germany and Israel. That work is on full display here at Global Forum. We've already seen how AJC has mobilized our global advocacy network on behalf of the hostages and their families, engaged university presidents directly, I think we saw it very directly, on the safety of Jewish students on campus, activated our 25 regional offices to fight anti-Semitism and support Israel on the ground throughout the country, and work hand in hand with Jewish communities around the world. These are just a few examples of what our 330 staff and over 1,300 active volunteers do every day. Unfortunately, it is not nearly enough. As much as we are doing, we could do so much more. The only thing stopping us is additional resources. Anti-Semitism is surging on campuses, in the streets and the halls of government. The campaign to demonize Jews and delegitimize Israel has never been more coordinated, more global, or more relentless. We are living through a level of hostility toward Jews that none of us expected to see, such that in some circles it has actually become fashionable to be anti-Semitic. Our adversaries have been playing the long game. For decades, they've been building networks, training activists and protesters, shaping narratives and embedding their messages in universities, international institutions, and throughout the media. As my wife has been saying for years, we put our names on buildings while our enemies were buying professorships. Many organizations historically fought anti-Semitism by calling it out with the expectation that if people see it, they could stop it. This doesn't work anymore. And as anti-Semitism has evolved, we must evolve with it. We need to be as strategic and sustained as those who are working against us. And anti-Semites have long accused us of being too smart and too successful. I take this anti-Semitic trope as a compliment, and it makes me want to use those smarts and resources to fight back. That is why we are launching the AJC 120 Initiative, a focused 5-year plan to reach $120 million in annual giving by 2030. More resources means deeper engagement with emerging leaders through Project Interchange, sustained relationships with global leaders, expanding access and lifts so more young leaders are trained and ready, and using technology to dramatically expand what we can do on social media and beyond. Reaching our goal of $120 million starts with all of us, whether that's by increasing our financial commitments, our time, or both. And in doing so, we are not only setting an example, but we send a message to both our friends and our adversaries that we're not going anywhere. You will receive a prompt from the Global Forum app to take the next step in participating in the AJC 120 initiative, and we hope that you will do so to the utmost of your ability. Thank you.
Dear all, everyone who supports the American Jewish community and everyone who works at AJC, congratulations on celebrating AJC's 120 years of leadership. It's remarkably almost a half of the US independence, and I wish the committee many more years of purposeful work, at least another 120. Here in Ukraine, we are especially grateful, and we remember that AJC was the first Jewish organization outside Ukraine to support the restoration of Ukraine's independence and to call on the United States to recognize it. That was a powerful and important voice throughout the years of our independence. And now, during Russia's war against it, Ukraine has always been able to count on AJC's support. We deeply appreciate that. Thank you. Today, for us and for all of Europe, it's just as important that America remains determined, strong, and closely connected with its allies and with nations that believe in America. Without the determination of the United States, the world would be a much darker place. That is true for Europe, for Israel, for the entire Middle East and the Gulf, and for many, many regions around the world. Today, Ukraine is taking major steps together with our partners in the Middle East and the Gulf to ensure that Iranian drones and missiles do not determine how nations live. Ukrainians are helping build a new model of security for the world, one tested by modern war, and we count on continued support in return. We have proposed a new format of cooperation with the United States, the drone deal. Ukrainians are among the world's leaders in this field, and that is widely acknowledged. And we are ready to support the defense of every country that supports our independence and helps us defend ourselves against Russian attacks. Every day, Russia attacks our cities and communities, and almost every week we face massive attacks. Ukraine depends on American missiles and air defense systems to protect lives from Russian ballistic missiles. Just as it was important 35 years ago to support Ukraine's independence, it's just as important today to help Ukraine get the air defense it needs. I've sent a letter to the President and Congress of the United States about this, about how important it's that the Patriot systems defending Ukraine have the missiles they need. That depends on American decisions. I urge you to support those decisions. I urge you to continue supporting Ukraine. We truly hope you will help us strengthen our air defense. Thank you. God bless America. Slava Ukraini.
Please welcome Chair of AJC's Board of Governors, Melanie Nelkin.
Lifetime Achievement in Jewish Advocacy. This is a fitting award title for a gentleman whose career has helped to define what it means to be a global Jewish advocate. Rabbi Andrew Baker joined AJC in 1979, and after 47 extraordinary years, has decided to retire. We at AJC have decided to allow it. But not without first taking a few moments to honor him. Andy came to AJC after serving as a congregational rabbi in Chicago and a chaplain at San Quentin Prison in California. He began as an assistant director in our Chicago chapter, as our regional offices were then known, and then became director of our Washington, D.C. chapter, where he quickly became a leading figure in interfaith and intergroup relations. Recognizing his talent to advocate for the global Jewish community, he became Director of European Affairs and set about traveling across a transforming continent, helping Jewish communities find their place in the emerging democracies of Central and Eastern Europe, while becoming a prominent figure in international efforts to combat anti-Semitism and address Holocaust-era issues. As AJC began opening offices in European capitals, Andy was elevated to the position of Director Andy was elevated to the position of Director of International Affairs, Jewish Affairs, where his responsibilities broadened to maintaining AJC's network of relationships, not just in Europe, but throughout the diaspora. In January of 2009, in recognition of his stature in that role, Andy was appointed personal representative of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE, chairperson in office on combating anti-Semitism, and has been reappointed each successive year. Andy also negotiated what has become the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism, which you'll hear more about in a moment. Andy has been a key member of government commissions in the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Lithuania, and Romania, established to examine Holocaust-era history and address the claims of its victims. He is co-chair of the Lithuanian Goodwill Foundation and a longtime officer of the Jewish Claims Conference. For his diplomatic work in Europe, Andy has been decorated by presidents of Germany, Lithuania, Latvia, and Romania. And this is just part of his resume. Beyond these achievements, Andy is not only one of the world's leading experts on anti-Semitism, he's also a father, a grandfather, a mentor, a colleague, a keeper of memory and history, and a trusted advisor and dear friend to so many here and around the world. It has always been a personal privilege to sit in a diplomatic meeting with him and witness his expertise through profound compassion and conviction. 2.5 years ago, in a world convulsed by the horrors of October 7th and the global surge of anti-Semitism that followed, Andy reflected on this moment in world and Jewish history. In an OSCE essay, he wrote, quote, "In the face of the current explosion of anti-Semitism at a rate not seen in decades, we must continue implementing the tools at our disposal to combat it and make progress together. Only then can we ensure that the world's oldest hatred will not be an internal one," end quote. Andy, we are so grateful for your many years of service, which have unquestionably helped shape a better and safer world for the Jewish people. Before we present you with this award, we're delighted to share some reflections about you and your work from some of your most trusted partners in the field. Please turn your attention to the screens.
Over the course of a lifetime of noble and distinguished service, no one has done more to combat anti-Semitism than Rabbi Andy Baker.
He is one of a handful of figures who really impacted the global fight against anti-Semitism.
He is probably the best problem solver in our field. If he had become a diplomat, he would be the consummate diplomat because he's able to bring people together, and it has made him a very, very effective servant of the Jewish people over all of these decades.
Andy's success. It's not just about being right, it's about being able to express it in the way that the other side's going to listen.
So many people who say they would like to do something against anti-Semitism leave it on that general level, and Andy makes them accountable.
The one thing every Jewish community in Central and Eastern Europe knew they could do was to count on Andrew Baker for help. No matter where they were, I have seen it time and time again, he was the first number they would call, and he was always there for them.
His capability to work across the entire spectrum of Jewish life, across that complex, diverse mosaic. That's one of his enormous skills, is translating the need of a community and giving it a megaphone. That's what Andy does for Jewish communities around the world.
Andy is all-encompassing. You sometimes would want a short answer from Andy, but you often got a long one. But if you were patient and listened, you were guaranteed to learn something you didn't know before. He knew the details, he knew the issues, and more often than not, he had a very, very good grasp on how to fight them and how to address them.
Determined. I would say Mensch.
He is a master negotiator, speaking softly on the one side, but acting with relentless consequence.
The strategic marathon runner, he always tries to find a solution. Then also when we have setbacks and we do not succeed, he finds a way to push organizations, to push people forward.
Effective. His manner, his depth of knowledge, his natural diplomatic skills, and his personality. All of those things together have made Andy an extremely effective spokesman for the Jewish community and for the AJC and for all of us.
Rabbi Andy Baker has had a tremendous impact in the fight against anti-Semitism because he is the initiator and I would even say the father of so many concrete structural changes in the fight against anti-Semitism.
Time and again, he was able to get countries that really have been somewhat indifferent or oblivious to the mounting problems of anti-Semitism in their own nation to pay attention to it.
He developed with other experts the working definition on anti-Semitism, which has become the gold standard.
Where he really stood out was understanding how multilateral organizations work, how they could impact the fight we were waging. He knew the players, he knew how far we could push them, he knew what might impact them to react.
Rabbi Baker fought tirelessly to put combating anti-Semitism on the agenda of the 57-nation-strong Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE.
He has done more than almost anyone to combat anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial, and providing justice to Holocaust survivors.
The Holocaust Memorial at Belzec, this massive memorial and museum, would, I doubt, ever have been built without his dedication.
One of the most important moments was when he was involved in the negotiations regarding the Holocaust survivors.
He was able to help convince Chancellor Kohl of Germany to pay 48,000 claimants over $300 million.
He has made an impact on Holocaust survivors all across the world. They have felt the impact in their lives because of his participation and his role in negotiations with Germany.
With all the projects and programs that Andy Baker has been involved with in so many countries, the end result is that he's made the world a better place for Jews, but not only that, he's made the understanding the importance of these countries' Jewish history and heritage important for everyone.
He has given agency and he has given a voice to Jewish communities that are usually small and that needed encouragement and needed concrete support. This will be his legacy.
Andy, please join me on stage. On behalf of AJC, it is my honor to present you with AJC's Lifetime Achievement in Jewish Advocacy Award. The inscription reads, "For in recognition of an extraordinary career, safeguarding Jewish communities, advancing Holocaust remembrance and restitution, and strengthening the Jewish world." Thank you.
Melanie, thank you so much, all of you. So appreciative. Thank you. 30 years ago, when I was AJC's European director, I was friends with Ignaz Bubis, the head of the Jewish community in Germany. That was a serious job, and Bubis was a serious guy, at least in public. But in private, he had quite a sense of humor. We were together one afternoon at a conference in Bonn. Most of those attending were well on in years, retired diplomats, former politicians. Bubis looked at them and he said to me, "These are people whose future is behind them." Well, now 30 years on, I think I am one of those people. But I can tell you tonight, I have had a really good future, and most of it here at AJC. I was a 29-year-old congregational rabbi in Chicago when the synagogue where I worked did away with my position. And a friend suggested I speak to Gene Dubow, AJC's Chicago regional director. He offered me a job, and I thought I would do it for a year or two, and then return to congregational life. But that year or two stretched into 47, and Gene became a lifelong friend and mentor to me. I came to Washington a year later as the local AJC director. But as AJC shifted its focus from domestic concerns to the international arena, I moved with it. Under the leadership of Shula Bahad and David Harris, and later with the guidance of Jason Isaacson, we became the global advocacy organization that you know today. I became European director in the 1990s, when we had the opportunity to play a role in NATO expansion, and through that, to press the new democracies of Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union to address the legacies of their Holocaust past, to support the revival of Jewish communal life. It was enormously challenging, but deeply fulfilling. Soon, I was on a first-name basis with many of these countries' political leaders, which I must tell you was a good thing because I never could pronounce their last names. Among other things, I had the opportunity to lead our efforts in partnership with the Polish government in the development of the memorial at the Nazi death camp in Belzec, and mounted a successful campaign to press a reluctant German government to extend benefits to Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union. We had imagined the expression "Europe whole and free" would, in those early post-communist years, also mean a united and thriving Jewish community across the continent. But the resurgence of anti-Semitism in Western Europe in the early 2000s, much of it fueled by a deep anti-Israel animus, caused us to shift focus. First, we had to press governments and international organizations to see that they had a problem, and then get them to do something about it. We lobbied the European Union and individual governments and issued our own call to action. I was asked by the director of the European Monitoring Center to help it develop a definition of anti-Semitism, one that would capture both its traditional and new forms. And with the help of AJC colleagues and scholars around the world, we drafted what came to be known as the working definition of anti-Semitism, now the IRA definition, something that has become an indispensable and widely adopted guidance tool in the fight against anti-Semitism. My work took a detour and brought me to Egypt, trying to leverage AJC's reputation and my work on preserving Jewish heritage in Eastern Europe to do something similar, where there were almost as many shuttered synagogues as there were Jews remaining in the country. Government officials and ministry heads would shout and lecture me on the Middle East conflict, but in the end, they would agree to restore important synagogues and heritage sites, all while preventing word of this from reaching the Egyptian public. One of the most important achievements was the complete restoration of Maimonides' original yeshiva in Cairo. When it was formally dedicated in the presence of Egyptian Jews from around the world, I had the honor of affixing a new mezuzah to the yeshiva's entrance, even as Egyptian police barred reporters from entering. Looking back now on those years, it's hard not to think that so many of those problems, anti-Semitism and Holocaust distortion first among them, are still with us today, even more serious, and even in our own country. To be sure, the problems are daunting, but AJC has never been as well positioned to take them on as it is now, with a remarkably talented and committed professional staff, and with a leader in Ted who combines unequaled political and diplomatic skills and still manages to tell us 10 things every week. This year, we celebrate AJC's 120th anniversary, and I have been here for a fair chunk of those years. So in closing, I want to thank my children, Johanna, Gabi, Jesse, and Emma, for their love and for sharing me with you all this time. And to Adina, whose love and support have sustained me, not only for the future that is past, but for the future yet to come. Thank you.
Jewish people do control our society. That's just a fact.
You've probably repeated something shaped by this lie without ever knowing it. Most people have. This is one of the oldest anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. The idea that Jews exert disproportionate control over governments, banks, and global events, even the weather. For centuries, this myth has been used to falsely blame Jews for wars, economic crises, and political chaos. It spreads hate by portraying the Jewish community as powerful, sinister, and secretly pulling strings. Increasingly, those who are using these myths replace the word Jew for the word Zionist, same conspiracy, new language, that anti-Semites hope won't trigger modern hate speech alarms. When you hear claims about Zionist influence, that's not political commentary. It's an ancient lie in modern disguise. These conspiracies have real consequences. They radicalize people and have inspired real-world violence against Jews. AJC created Translate Hate to help people recognize modern anti-Semitism, including centuries-old conspiracy theories that have been rebranded to sound legitimate. Hate hurts everyone. Let's call it out when we see it.
Please welcome past AJC National President, Michael Tickner.
Good evening, and once again, congratulations, Andy. In our efforts to build a world in which Jews in Israel can thrive, confronting anti-Semitism remains central to AJC's global mission. Anti-Semitism is showing up in new places and taking on new forms across political extremes, on campuses, in professional spaces, and across digital platforms that shape public discourse. Long-held assumptions about who spreads anti-Semitism, how it operates, and where it belongs are proving insufficient. More than 2 years after October 7th, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, Jewish communities continue to experience heightened threats, isolation, and insecurity. This moment demands sharper analysis, more adaptive responses, and shared responsibility across sectors of society. Tonight, we are joined by 3 outstanding leaders to help us make sense of this moment from distinct but interconnected vantage points. Aviva Siegel, CEO of Boundless, focuses on digital narratives and how younger audiences engage with Israel and anti-Semitism online. Zvika Klein, editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post, focuses on how Israel-related events are framed and transmitted through global media and international discourse. Dave Rich, director of policy at the Community Security Trust, focuses on anti-Semitism as it appears in real-world threats, extremist activity, and community security across the UK and Europe. Together, they will examine how anti-Semitism is manifesting itself today, from the normalization of anti-Jewish rhetoric to the amplification of misinformation and hostility through digital platforms, to the ways events in Israel are being interpreted through global media ecosystems in real time. They will also explore what effective responses look like in practice, in protecting Jewish communities, strengthening narrative resilience, countering misinformation, building cross-border coordination, and preparing the next generation to confront hatred with clarity, confidence, and moral courage. Needless to say, these conversations are neither easy nor abstract, but they are critical as we move forward in our work. This conversation will be moderated by AJC Senior Vice President of Policy and Political Affairs, Julie Raymond. Please join me in welcoming our panel.
Thank you all and welcome. Michael said it all. We are truly living in a new age of anti-Semitism. But I recognize that this panel is the last thing standing between you all and dinner. So we're going to solve it real quick, and then you're going to be able to go on your way.
We could talk about anti-Semitism and food.
We could. But seriously, on a very serious note, I don't think that we can divorce this conversation from what we heard from Keith and Aviva Siegel earlier, because their story is such an inspirational reminder that October 7th wasn't one day. It wasn't one moment in time. It started this continuous moment that we're all still living and grappling in. So Aviva, I want to start with you. One of the things that we've heard from communities around the world, particularly since October 7th, is that increasingly, Jewish identity is measured by connection to Israel. That explicitly or implicitly, Jews are a proxy for Israel. You work in narrative. How best can we communicate this distinction in a way that's going to really resonate with audiences?
Sure. So first of all, thank you. It's really a joy and great strength to be with all of you here. And I do apologize that we're standing between you and dinner. In the words of my Canadian brethren, sorry. So we did a study at Boundless, which is the organization that I co-head. And we found that 42% of Americans are having a hard time distinguishing between the Israeli government and American Jews. That means that nearly half of this country is looking at their Jewish neighbors and colleagues and seeing the Netanyahu government. And we know that we are the only community in this country that's being forced to serve as a stand-in for a government on the other side of the world. And that there's a price to pay if you want to be accepted into polite society. And that price is having the quote-unquote right opinion about the Israeli government, or the right condemnation, more accurately, of the Israeli government. We also know that people have a lot of strong feelings about the language that's circulating. So for example, Zionism. That is a word that elicits a lot of strong feelings from people. But in a study we did, we found that very few Americans actually know what it means. In fact, it's 14%, 14% of Americans who can correctly define Zionism. So that means 86% of this country is highly susceptible to believing the rhetoric out there that is depicting Zionism as a form of white Jewish supremacy. And that tells us something interesting. It tells us not that people have a problem with Zionism as an idea or a concept, but they have a real problem with what they have been told incorrectly that Zionism is. And that, of course, is being amplified by social media, because social media rewards simplicity and outrage and tribalism. It tells us, it insists that the world has to be divided into victims and villains, oppressors and oppressed. It flattens all complexity. So Jewish identity equals Israel, which equals the very worst headlines about the country, and then we, American Jews, become proxies for those bad headlines. So what is it that we need to do? First of all, we need to remind people that just as their own identity and history and culture cannot be flattened into a slogan or an image or a meme, well, neither can ours. And I really think that we need to take this fight to the notion that people are trying to tell us that there's no such thing as truth. Of course there's such a thing as truth. And we need to give people a little bit more credit that they can handle complexity. Because at the end of the day, it's about how we convey information and education. And the how of how we do it is where we have a lot of room for improvement. We have to be more emotive, more engaging, far more creative. But ultimately, it is about information and education. In that same Zionism study that we did, we found that when we gave people a one-sentence definition of Zionism, we quadrupled the number of people who identify as a Zionist. And most importantly, when Americans know correctly what Zionism is, they are far more likely to support Jews and far more likely to believe that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state.
Amazing, thank you. Yes. Zvika, I want to turn to you because Aviva talked about social media, which is where we see so many of these problems. But in traditional media, we're also seeing the morphing of this compressed narrative with the facts on the ground. What does that mean? What are you seeing, and what's the impact both on how audiences are reading about or viewing events in Israel and the impact on the diaspora?
Thank you. Also, it's great to be here, and it was an inspiring presentation to see before. We're not in the game. We're not, the Jerusalem Post, 93-year-old institution, a lot younger than the AJC.
You'll grow.
We're getting there. We're growing pains. We have 1.5 million followers on Facebook, which is great in my opinion. But if you look at what's going on, 20 years ago, Al Jazeera was established, and as well as many faculties teaching Middle East studies. And we became the bad guys no matter what. So no matter how much we want our government, and it will never succeed in doing hasbara or whatever, however you want to call it, we're just very far away from what's been going on for 2 decades. Al Jazeera is the largest, except for the BBC, the largest media outlet in the world when it comes to the amount of journalists, 70 bureaus around the world. I have one. I'm hoping to grow, as you said. and interestingly, just in the past few months, in the past, definitely the past Iran war, Al Jazeera passed CNN and Fox News in their subscribers to YouTube. So that's not the only number for impact, etc. But they are able to make a difference. This is Al Jazeera English. It is not Arabic. It's not all the other the languages that they have. We, the Jewish people, we, the state of Israel, spend billions of dollars on combating anti-Semitism. Now, how's that going for us? We're here, obviously, discussing it. We saw what's going on around the world, just on the stage here, the amount of examples, not only of swastikas, but people being killed for being Jewish, or not even being Jewish, assumed to be Jewish. Unfortunately, in the newsroom, it used to be if there was a swastika in a Jewish cemetery in Ohio, that would be the top of the news. It's not anymore because it's normal. And if we have to prioritize a story, it won't be the swastika because there's lots of those, unfortunately. So we're in a situation now where we have to decide how to do this. And it's not just reacting. We have to be proactive in deciding that we're taking funds and building something huge and understanding that it will take 20 years. But I think with that, we'll be able to tell the story, just one very short story to give the example. A good friend of mine is a combat warrior in reserve. And a few days after October 7th, on the northern border, his friends were killed, 3 of them, and 2 out of 3 are Druze. And my friend said, I want to dedicate a Aron Kodesh, an ark in the synagogue with a parchment with cloth and have their names on it. So we have a piece of cloth on the Aron Kodesh. 2 out of 3 are Druze soldiers. It's an Orthodox synagogue. I don't know if that exists anywhere else, but that's Israel. Now, is the world saying it? No, because we're the bad guys.
Oh, very profound. Dave, I want to turn to what I would say is a practical matter. Because at Community Security Trust, you're not just looking at anti-Semitism as a social phenomenon, but as a real day-to-day security threat. And after what we've seen most recently, several times, at Golders Green, what's the newest way of thinking, both about how we're seeing online trends translate into real-world incidents, but also sort of the future of the security apparatus for the Jewish people?
So this is a question that is challenging every Jewish community around the world right now. We heard earlier about Australian Jewish community. We heard incredibly powerfully about the devastating impact anti-Semitism can have and has had here in the United States. So it's something all of our communities are facing. And I think after 7th of October, there was this explosion of anti-Semitism around the world. But it's only in the last 12 months it started to manifest in this very deadly way in terrorist attacks repeatedly of a sort that we always saw previously in history, but it feels different now. It feels connected. It feels like it's part of a single wave kind of washing around the world. And I think we at CST and we in our Jewish communities make a connection that for 2.5 years, people have been inciting online, have been on protests, calling for violence, calling for intifada, calling for death, etc., etc. It isn't dealt with. And lo and behold, if you let violent language become normalized, you get violent attacks. That is just, it stands to reason. And I think there's a lot of questions to be answered about why it wasn't tackled. But we are where we are. And now this is the challenge for all of us in Jewish communities. How do we respond to this? And the first response is, of course, we need more police, we need more security, we build higher and higher walls. But that's not an answer. That's not an answer to what is happening, because the psychological impact on our communities is not prevented by security. And I'll tell you what I mean. We had this run of arson attacks targeting synagogues and other Jewish community premises in North London through March and April. And most of them failed. Right? Most of them failed because we had built enough security measures into our buildings that the people trying to burn them down with petrol bombs failed to do it. But the psychological and emotional impact on the Jewish community of waking up every morning and finding someone else somewhere in London has tried to burn down another synagogue, that's the same. Right? And the challenge for us as Jews, when we're living in this period now, I think all of us who were fortunate enough to grow up in liberal democracies, we grew up with a basic assumption that we were safe as Jews, that we could live our Jewish lives openly and without having to worry too much about anti-Semitism. And of course, occasionally there were terrible attacks, and I'm sure we can all think of them. But in between them, it kind of felt like we were safe. I don't think any of us feel that way now. I think that assumption of safety is gone. And of course, we want to get it back. Looking at the world now, I don't think it's coming back anytime soon. So I think the challenge for us is, how do we live our Jewish lives without that sense of safety? And whenever I think of that, I always come back to Hanukkah, because Hanukkah is the most public, most joyous expression of our Jewishness and of our right to live our Jewish lives openly in our open democratic societies. Now, the attack at Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester, which was the first deadly terrorist attack we'd basically ever had in Britain, was in October. And when Hanukkah came along 2 months later, we thought there'll be fewer Hanukkah lightings in public this year because people will be too scared. And it was the opposite. We had more than ever. A lot of it is down to Chabad, and I think Chabad's attitude to this is unbelievable, the positivity. And then we woke up on the morning of what was going to be the first night of Hanukkah, and we saw the news from Bondi. And I mean, we thought many things, as I'm sure we all did, but in amongst the horror, as CST, we thought people are going to cancel Hanukkah lightings now because they're not going to want to go. And again, it was the opposite. Nobody cancelled. What did happen was we got people calling us up saying, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention we've got a Hanukkah lighting tonight. Can we have some security? Okay, I love our community. They all went ahead and more people went, right? And I think, I look around this room now, and I think as communities, we have incredible strength, we have incredible resilience, we have a tradition of activism in our histories, in the history of AJC as well, that we can grab hold of and revive. And I think we have it within us to meet this challenge, but we have to believe in ourselves. And I think that's the first step.
It's beautiful. We just have a few minutes left. And so I want to ask you a rapid fire question. Earlier this evening, TED announced our Combating Anti-Semitism playbook that gives concrete recommendations for all sectors of society, from business to education, media, law enforcement, government, and so on. If you had to identify one thing that you think institutions writ large and the leaders who govern them misunderstand when they're thinking about anti-Semitism, what is that? And if I can be so bold with just a few minutes left to add a follow-up, what can we be doing to correct that misunderstanding? Zvika, I'm going to start with you and just come this way.
So I'm going to connect to what Dave said about Bondi Beach attack in Australia. So, I remember being with my staff in the newsroom, and I got a phone call from a friend of mine who's there. And he said there's an attack, and it's a Hanukkah lighting. We received information from a number of people that it was a Hanukkah event, and we reported it. It took Australian broadcasting hours to acknowledge that this was an event of Jews, a holiday. Now, we're in Israel. Yes, we're Jews. We are all in WhatsApp groups and we get information. Okay, fine. We're a small nation. That said, you have reporters all over the place. Why can't you say it? And I think it's the politically correctness, which is a bit, over exaggerated. There has to, it was an attack against Jews, period. not maybe, not we'll check, an inquiry. No, that's the fact. That's what happened. And I think that's what needs to be done all across media.
Thank you. I want to take a tiny moderator privilege and connect that to the playbook, because the reason we started with this idea of engaging practitioners directly and understanding what the real needs were to create the playbook was because after the attack in Colleyville, which was all about Jewish conspiracy, right? It was we're here to get Angela Buchdahl, because she's a powerful Jew, to free someone from prison. And the FBI said, we don't think there's a Jewish connection here.
Right.
But anyone who knows about Jewish tropes of control, of power, said, of course there is. And we started this initiative. So I just want to say that I think you're absolutely right, and that the reminder needs to constantly be there to call it out when people see it, and not just that, but to look for it, know what you're looking for. So thank you.
I'm going to read the book.
Really good. Bestseller.
Implement it.
Aviva.
I think when speaking to institutions and policymakers, the point that we need to make is the difference between intent and impact. Too much of the public conversation is hyper-focused on intent. What do the 5 losers outside wearing keffiyehs mean? Is it violent intent? What do they mean when they say from the river to the sea? Is this political expression? What exactly is it? That's not the conversation that we need to be having in this country. An AJC report found that more than half of American Jews have changed their behavior because they are afraid, because of anti-Semitism. So instead of intent, we need to be talking about impact. What is the impact on American Jews in this moment? If we have to build our institutions like fortresses to be safe, that's a failure in the fight of anti-Semitism. If people are wondering if it's safe to wear Jewish symbols, a kippah on their head, a Magen David necklace, Hebrew writing on their shirts, that's a failure in the fight against anti-Semitism. If Jewish families are wondering if it's safe to have a mezuzah on the door, we're failing in the fight against anti-Semitism. If Jewish kids in this country are sitting silently because they're afraid to open their mouth and share what they actually think because of the price they're going to pay socially or academically, that is a massive failure in the fight against anti-Semitism, and we need people to be looking at impact.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to reading the playbook, actually. I think it's a great idea. Look, we often start from the wrong place when we try and tackle anti-Semitism. We start from the place of, this is about free speech. You have free speech, you have hate speech. Somewhere in the middle there's a line. As long as people start on the right, keep on the right side of the line, we're okay. If we can all agree where that line is, we'll do better. It's the wrong framing, right? Anti-Semitism is not a free speech issue. It is a public safety issue because people are getting killed as a result of it. And where Iran or other hostile states are involved, it's a national security issue. And it is a threat to democracy. And any institutions you're talking to, whether it's in politics or in culture or arts or education, if they allow anti-Semitism to take root within their institution will fail in its core function. Never mind what happens to the Jews who are there. And I think it's that framing and it's that understanding should be our starting point for everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. Tomorrow, we have breakout sessions where everyone in this audience is going to be engaging with leaders from interfaith communities, from government, really sectors across the board. And that kind of tangible guidance will be critical. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate all your wisdom, always.